Welcome to our 11th episode of SARCan, Canada's Volunteer Search and Rescue podcast. For Volunteer SAR, about Volunteer SAR, by Volunteer SAR, and brought to you by Axiom Mutual Insurance, keeping promises close to home. My name is Patrick Armstrong, and with me is Spencer Whitelaw, but we're separated today, Spencer.
We are, but distance, nothing can come between you and I.
Is that what we're going to go with, is it? SARCan is produced by the Huron Area Search and Rescue, made possible by Hay Communications. And I'm really excited, Spencer. This episode, you wouldn't be old enough to remember the old after-school specials or the special edition of, like when Michael J. Fox took caffeine pills for family ties. But we have Dylan Weller, who is a SAR Tech and the creator and host of the SAR Take, a Canadian podcast specialized about SAR Techs, educating what SAR Techs do. He's here today.
And I know that we are, again, if I haven't stressed this enough in previous episodes, different generations. But like TV still existed when I was a kid. I still went home after school and watched television. The only difference was mine was in color and yours probably wasn't. And like there was plenty of crossover episodes. There was like Kim Possible and Lilo Stitch, and you're talking about Michael J. Fox and caffeine pills. I don't know what tangent you just went on there, but like I know what a crossover episode is.
My first TV was black and white, but color was around at that time. Thank you very much.
I thought your first TV would have been an old radio.
No, but I did actually listen to the radio. I listened to radio I wasn't supposed to listen to under the covers when my parents went to bed.
So you mean you didn't have Spotify or iTunes or YouTube when you were a kid?
I don't even know what those things are.
Jeez. Well, it looks like it's going to be a great episode. I'm looking forward to talking to Dylan, and worst case scenario, he picks us up because his podcast is very well known. He's done lots and lots of episodes. He's very experienced, so I'm sure wherever we fall short, he'll bump the episode back up in ratings.
This episode's sponsor is Compass Minerals, in particular, the Goddard Salt Mine. Compass Minerals has been a sponsor of Hazar for a long time and is responsible for the donation that allowed us to purchase our 2019 Argo Rescuer. And we're here with our SAR Shoutout, where we highlight a SAR unit from across Canada. And I'm here with Derek Niles from Coast Guard Auxiliary Unit 544, Port Stanley.
Hi, Patrick. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you being here. You were one of These Are the People in the Neighborhood shout-outs earlier, and I have to credit most of our success as a Coast Guard Auxiliary unit with you helping me go through the paperwork.
Yeah, well, paperwork's one of those necessary evils about getting capability on the water, for sure.
Well, we've got you, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, great. So I'm a 27-year naval officer with the Royal Canadian Navy on that side. Spent a bunch of time on both East Coast, West Coast, here in the Great Lakes. Former commanding officer of His Majesty's Canadian Ship Prevost in London. But that's one of the hats, I suppose, that I've worn. Spent some time with the RCMP, sort of managing training with the Ontario Division here, and some time with the Canadian Coast Guard, both at our primary search and rescue stations in Port Weller, Tobermory, and Goderich, as well as a maritime SAR coordinator and search mission coordinator with the Rescue Coordination Center in Trenton.
That's amazing. Definitely a lot of hats, and all in the SAR world. And actually, I think that's where I first met you, was HMCS Prevost.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of tie-ins between our various government departments and in terms of how we provide services to Canadians from a safety perspective. And, one of those elements obviously is the volunteer aspect, and been volunteering in the SAR realm since 2017.
So let's talk about your unit. I know that my members all drool when it comes to the vessels that you operate, but let's talk about your unit.
Sure. Yeah. So Unit 544 Port Stanley was formed in 2019. My SAR background and my motivation to want to kind of keep doing this sort of thing allowed us to fill in a gap. The closest primary search and rescue station for us is in Amherstburg, which is down, entrance to the Detroit River near Windsor in Detroit. And the other one is up by Port Dover on the far side of Long Point. And so we've got some 70, 80 nautical miles of distance between Erie and Long Point that we cover off to out to the Canadian-U.S. border. That's a 1,500 square nautical mile area that we have that we kind of look after on a volunteer basis on behalf of the Coast Guard in that side. And so we are a private unit that again formed in 2019. We've got 12 members. We're capped at 12 based on the nature of our piece, but lucky enough to have some assets that are available to us, both 35-foot commercial workboat. And a 25-foot fast rescue craft that my company, Orange Force Marine Limited, donates time on in support of Unit 544 and the SAR mission in Central Lake Erie.
That's incredible. And as you know, our episode today, we're going to be talking with SAR Tech, and you have some experience with working with the squadrons and SAR Techs.
Yeah, they're quite used to operating with their primary SAR stations up in Cobourg and Kingston and what have you as part of the routine training. But one of the things that we got started doing, based on the nature, I suppose, of my background and the unique nature of some of our vessels, starting in 2019, we would help them with what they call boat camp, which allows their aircraft commanders and their search and rescue technicians to practice hoist training on platforms in advance of the busy SAR season, and to kind of get ramped up and to do that ramp up on a different platform than what you're used to, with different characteristics, different wind over the deck, different places to land on. So yeah, many a times we've had helicopters and rotors overhead taking a bunch of spray in the face from that rotor wash, and had the privilege of watching our SAR techs do their business off of our aft deck or our foredeck. So it's been a neat experience. In addition to sort of working with the Hercules for pump drops, sea rescue kit drops, and some live parachuting. So kudos and hats go out to the SAR techs for the crazy stuff they do, but know that we're on the water underneath them as bottom cover, if you will, to look after whatever they need to do.
Why do you volunteer? Why do you stay at this?
Well, I mean, SAR is an interesting business and a very challenging business. You know, when I was at the Rescue Coordination Center, it was very much like detective work, right? You get to find somebody who's missing and hopefully bring them home. And frankly, there's nothing more rewarding than getting to call a mother and say, "Hey, we found your son, or he's safe. We're bringing him home." The same thing goes for, "Hey, we got your boat in safe," right? "Hey, we brought your family member back to that." And so a big part of it is about the contribution that it makes to our community, right? Safe boating's sometimes a challenge for some folks, and Lake Erie, where we are, has got some big weather periodically, and so the ability to kind of give back to that community, to make sure that we can keep those community members safe and we can make a difference on some families, sometimes that's what kind of keeps you there. For me, it's a bit of a professional challenge as well, and we go out in some nasty weather and do some very complex things along the way, and so a bit of a professional challenge to get some boats off and to manage other resources and to be really effective at searching for and solving cases. It's kind of another reason, and I suppose the third reason would be a little bit of that addiction to boats and marine operations, and the adrenaline rush that comes when the call comes in from Trenton. So it kind of keeps you plugged in and keeps you engaged and keeps you trying to do the best job that you can out there for communities, for families, and for folks that run into trouble in the water.
Well, on behalf of SARCan, we appreciate everything that you do, your volunteer hours, all the hats that you wear, and we hope you and your crew stay safe, and thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate the opportunity to be on here.
It's great for us to have our first crossover episode, the creator and the host of SAR Take, a podcast starting in 2020 and highlighting the people and stories of SAR Techs. I'd like to welcome Dylan Weller. Dylan, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate this. It's great.
Dylan, as we always do in our podcast with our guests, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into podcasting about SAR Techs.
Okay, well, my name is Dylan Weller. I'm a sergeant in the Canadian Air Force, and I'm a SAR Tech. I've been a SAR Tech since 2015 would have been my course. I graduated course in 2016, so 9 years operational anyway. Prior to that, I was an aircraft technician working on the F-18 fighter pilots in Cold Lake, Alberta. Sounds a bit more exciting than it was. It was like fueling and marshalling is probably like my main job. They knew I wanted to go SAR right away, so they kind of they're like, "Oh, you'll just tow. We're not going to teach you to anything." So I just towed and marshaled jets for a while until I could join SAR. Yeah, time as a SAR Tech. I'm a team leader. I've been flying out of Greenwood, Nova Scotia. I flew out of there for just over 4 years on the H-149 Cormorant helicopter and the CC-130 Hercules. Then I got posted to Winnipeg, 435 Squadron Winnipeg, and flew the CC-130 Hercules out there. And then I got offered a position as an instructor at the Canadian Forces School of Search and Rescue, and I took it. And so now I'm teaching a lot of different stuff, but the main SAR Tech course, as well as I'm involved heavily in teaching the parachuting skills, the main parachuting, the free fall, and the confined area stuff. I'm quite involved in running some of those things. And in our trade, we have coaches that help us coach the other SAR Techs jump wise. So I also help out with running those coach programs, and just kind of like heavier on the parachuting side just as an instructor, but also teaching some of the medical stuff, teaching some of the rope rescue skills and mountaineering and that sort of thing. So that's kind of what I'm doing career-wise. In my personal life, I have a wife and 2 kids, and I'm an ultra runner. I do like ultra marathons and stuff for my free time. Very little free time that I have, and yeah, that's pretty much who I am in a nutshell.
It's incredible.
Hey, that's quite the resume, and it's nice that the SAR path was carved out for you very early on.
So I was in cadets when I was pretty young, and I met SAR Tech came for a career night or one of those like presentations to show you what kind of stuff happens. And I remember listening to his presentation. The main part of his presentation talked about how to become a SAR Tech and how challenging it was and all the difficulties you overcame and all these little things you had to complete in order to become a SAR Tech. And I think that's ultimately what drew me to it. It seemed esteemed and hard to get, and it was a very low number of people. So I was kind of attracted to that sort of challenge. And yeah, I was like 13, I think, and I turned to my friend and I'm gonna be one of those guys one day. And then I just kind of throughout high school, I started looking at what I was gonna do, and I was like, well, the next logical step is to join the military. So I found what would I do if I joined the military, and I kind of just went down this path and kept chipping away at the challenge and at the ultimate goal. And one day I got offered a spot on selection. Kind of went from there.
Wow.
That's awesome. Speaks to the importance of recruiting, especially early on.
So let's talk about SAR Techs and their function in the forces. A veteran myself, there are a lot of myths inside the forces and outside the forces about SAR Techs. Tell us about the SAR Techs, their mission and roles.
Okay, so SAR as a Canadian, like a federal Canadian priority is quite high. We have SAR as a priority. We have safety and security as a priority, so policing, things like that. Like there's some high priorities in the federal government, and search and rescue is one of them. We have a really big country. We encourage people to go and explore and do things. And if you're going to do that in such a big country with a wide range of climate and wide range of weather and that sort of thing, you ought to offer the search and rescue capability, which we have. So way back 80 years or so, there was this guy who recognized the need to deliver medication to downed pilots and downed lost people, because ultimately they would die without these medication or having an ability to get to there and warm them up. And so he started doing that, and it kind of slowly evolved. So nowadays, SAR is very, very complex in Canada. As you guys know, there's Volunteer SAR, Ground SAR, Casera, Coast Guard. There's federal policing, there's provincial policing, there's city. There's all kinds of organizations all coming together to solve this one problem, which is search and rescue. Sometimes you need 5 trackers on the ground to go and find someone because you know roughly where they are. Sometimes you need multiple aircraft and multiple teams of people and dogs and all these extra things to affect the mission. When it comes to Canadian SAR Techs, we kind of are the catch-all at the end. So we've exhausted the ground resource, we've exhausted other agencies that are closer, or maybe they're in a park or something like that, and they have a team. They've exhausted that. The weather's terrible and no one wants to fly. That kind of gets all the way pushed to, okay, we're going to launch the Canadian Forces SAR Techs, and they're going to go out and affect this. And if they can't do it, it's more or less not going to happen. And it's not saying that we're just like the greatest and the best, but we are trained highly in a whole bunch of different skill sets. Same with our pilots, same with our navigators. And so it allows us to take a pretty significant amount of risk safely to try to go do some of the more complicated missions. And some of the missions are only able to do with our helicopter. It has 3 engines and it can fly super far out to sea because you can lose an engine and continue flying. And so that alone, that takes like basically all the boats that are out in fisheries require a helicopter and things like that. So we end up being used in a whole bunch of different ways. Again, like it's not always the most epic tip of the spear type of mission. Recently there was wildfires. Well, our plane happens to hold a ton of people, and so we can get tasked as well to do things like humanitarian aid, where we go to a reserve or go out to an area that's being taken over by fire and remove people. We cover the Arctic as well, which is a massive area, although low population density. There's other units that have the SAR capability in the Arctic, but ultimately we're going to head out there if there's a mission. And we hold a 24-hour ready MAGE aid kit, major air disaster or multi-casualty. It can support, like, we're talking dozens and dozens and hundreds of people. If were they to be, trapped in the Arctic from a downed aircraft and there's 150 people, we have a kit we can send there within 24 hours to set up tents and set up an entire camp to save people. So we also have that kind of extreme level capability. And lastly, I would say we have a dive capability, which is especially recently, it's been more rare for organizations to want to take on rescue diving because it's so dangerous. So we have that capability as well, where we'll do surface swimming, rescue diving, duck diving, that sort of thing.
And you bring up the air crash in the Arctic, and I think of the alert scenario from a number of years ago, and where you say that you guys kind of get everything. One thing I know SAR Techs are absolutely known for is that bravery, and I think that you speak well about it's a risk, but it sounds like it's a educated and calculated risk. You're not just going out there because it has to be done. You're going out there with all these plans and training in place, and that you're able to do it and nobody else is.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably, as a team leader, my primary job is risk management. So we have a document, it's called a MALA, a Mission Acceptance and Launch Authority, and it's a matrix of all these different variables that we take into account to determine what level of risk we're taking. It just kind of makes you conscious. You could come up with that yourself. You're like, well, the weather's kind of bad and it's dark, and it's like we're going to be flying low. That obviously that's high risk. But when you then take into all the other account, we're like, well, wait a minute, we have 2 aircraft commanders, so that's a little bit less risk because they're more experienced, and maybe we have lots of crew rest because it's during the day, and so you can kind of get a really good picture. We take the risk very seriously, and we take how we have a ton of mitigation in place, all the way from training up to operations, because it's not operations that are the most dangerous. Some of the training itself is just dangerous. It's just like inherently risky business.
Absolutely. Patrick, I presume that one of said aircraft are in Hazar's budget for next year?
Yeah, as a volunteer organization, aircraft is right up there.
Hey, Dylan, we're recruiting if you're looking for a retirement gig.
Yeah.
Well, Dylan, I know there's obviously a lot of interest in SAR Techs from the volunteer SAR perspective, both GSAR and Marine. Can you tell us what kind of qualities a candidate must have to even apply for the crazy stuff that you do and the initial training that's involved?
So from a basics, someone has to be in the military, and they have to be in the military for 4 years. There's some caveats. You could do it you can apply after 3 years if you're in a combat trade. It's just one of the things in our policy, which some people don't know, but if you're joining the military to become a SAR Tech, 1 year off your wait time is pretty good. It's either 1 year off your wait time or 1 year where you'll have some people don't make it in the first year they try, so it's just an extra year. So 4 years or 3 years in the military at the rank, at least corporal, then you can apply for SAR. There's some paperwork involved, a PT test, there's an aptitude test, and an interview. So all that kind of comes together. And they do a paper selection where they just take all these files and they look at the resumes, what people are like and experience, and they pick a group of people. And that group of people, maybe it's 35, 40 people, they get sent to Jarvis Lake. It used to be called selection, now it's called land survival, but everyone more or less knows it as selection. And they come out to selection for, it's about 2 weeks. It's a very hard 2 weeks. You do a couple days of kind of classroom administration type stuff, and then 2 weeks of like the hardest 2 weeks. ever. We're talking like a couple hours of sleep a night and activity in classroom all day long. We basically teach an insane amount of data and information, all easy stuff, but a lot of information on basic survival. And then it's a job interview. So throughout the weeks, people quit, people fail things and get sent home, or a lot of people quit ultimately from a physical, they're just unable to do it physically, or they kind of look around and everyone's crushing them and they're like, you know what, I'm out of here. And so it kind of just weans itself down for a while until you do quite a large navigational exercise, like old school map and compass style of navigation. And you do that for like basically a week where you're trekking in a team for maybe 6-7 hours a day. Then you're setting up camp, making food, setting up a whole survival camp. Then wake up in the morning, tear it down, get new coordinates, and then repeat for a week until about a week. It's a little bit less. Then you do a solo portion where you do all that by yourself, build your own camp, and then you're in that camp solo for 4 days, like no food. You have to deal with all your own stuff for 4 days. And then you make your way back to the camp, do a final exam, and that's kind of selection or land survival. And then you can pass that and not go on SAR course because it comes down to suitability. So the whole time during the selection, we're determining who's suitable for the SAR course and who's not suitable for the SAR course. It's not like we have ultimate power and we're like, I don't like this guy. It's not like that at all. It's a job interview. So you're looking at a bunch of skill sets like agility, psychomotor capability, teamwork. There's a whole bunch of elements that you have to look into and see if someone's meeting all of these things. And what it really is just to see if they're going to make it through the SAR course. The SAR course is very hard. It's a year long. A lot happens in the 1 year, like insane, hard to imagine unless you do it kind of thing. And then even after the SAR year, you're not fully a SAR Tech, or you're not fully, you don't have an aircraft category. So you still have training on the end of it. So it's a very long process to get to the day one where, okay, you're the guy where if someone calls on a mission, it's you going. Like it takes a long sort of time.
And so you're looking at jump qualifications. Are you looking at ship's diver, Army diver qualifications, and as far as in my limited knowledge, extreme medical qualifications as well?
Okay, yeah. So then now we're talking about the main SAR course. So the land survival, everyone does it, and then once they get picked and they found suitable, they get sent on the SAR course. The SAR course is not all of this is exact because there's some little weeks here and weeks there, but more or less you do a 2-year paramedic program. You do that in the first like 3 or 4 months. You do this entire paramedic program all the way up to an ambulance and like treating people. So you do this whole paramedic program in a couple months. That's arguably the hardest portion of the entire year. And then you go on an ambulance and they put you right in the call. So here you go, you're running this call and there's a guy like laying on the street, whatever. And so you're just being a paramedic for about a month and they just throw you kind of straight into it. You get some emergency room skills where you go and hang out in an emergency room and people come in and you're the guy and you're doing IVs and doing whatever. And so you kind of just get blasted with all that stuff. That brings you almost to Christmas and you do rotary underwater escape training. So it's like this helicopter mock-up and it goes into water and it flips upside down and you learn how to evacuate a helicopter if it gets upside down. Seems out of place, but you need that qual to fly in the helicopter. And so we just fit it in and you do it there. After Christmas break, you do a month of diving with the Navy and you get your dive qual. Then you do a week of diving back at the school where we teach kind of the SAR diving stuff, surface swimming, like Ashton Kutcher and the Guardian type stuff, like that style of like rescue swimming without the helicopter. That's the diving. Then the course goes to the Arctic for 2 weeks and learns what the Arctic's like. You have to live in an igloo for a couple of days. You're outside for basically the entire time. It's something to learn what the Arctic's like in Canada. Is kind of mind blowing. And so you go and learn how to build igloos and learn how to build snow caves and do all the fun Arctic things that you can do. There's a winter mountain package where you go and learn ice climbing and roping up and some of the basic skills. There's a couple of days of flying where you kind of just get introduced to our aircraft and what that's like. Then you do para, which is 7 weeks, and it's definitely the most fun in the course, but definitely the most physically demanding. It's 7 weeks of 5 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. It's actually earlier than 5 because you got to get up at 4 and then get briefed and then do all your stuff. So it's very long days, and you go from 0 jumps to jumping into small areas in the trees, and you do that in about 100 jumps. It's very, very fast progression. So after para, you have a 3-week mountain package where you go and learn all the rope skills and again, you're learning it so fast that it's your job you're a team member. So it's your job to maintain those skills as you go to the unit and as you grow as a SAR Tech, and you're going to do advanced. So you kind of just learn all that stuff on that course. Then you come to Jarvis and do final ops, where we put it all together, and you do 2 weeks of mission scenarios. And so now you're putting everything together. You're doing a rope rescue type scenario, and then you're going and jumping somewhere, or you're jumping to an area where you do a rope scenario, then you're diving in the afternoon. So you kind of like piece it all together because that's what being a SAR Tech's like. You might do one skill one day and have to totally shift your brain to some other skill that you have to do. And so it's quite intense. You learn enough for sure to be a safe and competent SAR Tech, but you're still heavily relying on the team leader and other SAR Techs to help you, because you can learn all that stuff. You have to practice it to be able to apply it and do all those things. And so also on the mountain package, we do alpine and crevasse rescue and all the ice stuff. We also do that in the summer mountain program, and they learn the small team rope rescue and the larger team rope rescue, how to be a member of that, not the leader of it. The leader of it comes, several years later, kind of thing. And that's kind of the SAR course. It gets you to the unit as a SAR Tech, and then you have to start your aircraft stuff and learning how to fly in an aircraft and how to apply all these skills that you just spent a year learning, how to apply those in real life. And you've got a team leader that's backing you up, and then SAR never ceases to stop. You never cease to learn. You are always improving, learning. And then there's new things and changes, and you are always developing. It's one of the draws, I would say, to SAR, because I've been doing it for close to 10 years. I'm still always learning something. There's a SAR Tech here. I just happen to be at work, but he's been in the trade for over 20 years, and I showed him a little trick on the map, and he's like, I've been on course, and he named all these courses he's been on, and this training and that training, and he's like, no one has ever shown me this little trick. And it's kind of like that as a SAR Tech all the time. People have all this skill and knowledge, and you can pull from them and learn from them. It's such a unique environment to work in.
That's incredible. And it goes into the next question of what is day-to-day life like for SAR Tech?
So as a team member, your day-to-day is very much personal administration and skill development and skill improvement. And so you may or may not be on, so there's like a standby shift. You might be on standby, so you're going on the aircraft and you're at work, and if there's a call out, you're going and doing whatever you're told to do, basically. You can be on call, like but you're not flying, so now you're on the ground. And when you're on the ground, there's office work to do. There's like an endless amount of office work. And the newest guys are studying. They're in the books, they're reading, they're learning more and reviewing and writing notes and coming up with the reference material to learn all these things, because there's so many things you need to learn. You know all these basics, but now you have to learn all the training limitations and all the rules and all the different flying setups and all the different, there's so much. So definitely early on, you're doing a lot of studying, and at least for the first year, you're in the books almost every day. And then you have a secondary duty as well. Basically, everyone has a secondary duty. And so you have to do that, because SAR Techs maintain all our own stuff, more or less. So we pack our own parachutes, we pack our own planes, we pack a lot of our own safety, like all our food kits and our clothing kits, and we pack a lot of this stuff ourselves. Plus we have a medical section, which is basically a pharmacy. So you have 2 people running the medical section, and we have a dive section that maintains all our dive gear, and SAR Tech's running that dive. So you end up doing those. So it might be like,
with the team leader, okay, we're not flying today. What are we going to do? Okay, I want to do a workout. That's going to be an hour. I want to do an hour of admin. Let's do a medical scenario. Then we'll go to lunch, and then we'll do some rope work in the afternoon. You kind of just come up with your daily plan and try to fit it all in. When you're flying, you're going out and jumping, or you're going to do hoisting out of the helicopter. A lot of time it's currency, so the pilots need to do X number of landings. They need to do X number of hoists. This guy needs a boat, this guy needs that, and you kind of, as a team, come up with what you're going to do for the day, and you end up going and flying for 6 hours and doing all these things. That's where the adventure comes, because depending on where you are,
you might go and hoist to some island that no one is on, and you're just kind of standing on the island looking around. It's very interesting. You go to all kinds of different places, and you get lots of experience. And it's really fun as a team member because you're kind of just doing the SAR Tech stuff and you're doing all the little monkey skills. As you progress and you start becoming a team leader, it becomes way more about responsibility and decision making and what's safe and what's not safe. And kind of now you're dealing with now you have people that are underneath you that you're in charge of, newer SAR Techs that you're in charge of. It kind of, and you also still need to know all the other basic stuff. So it's interesting. It keeps you, it always, well, at least for me, it keeps me very motivated and focused because the new guys come in and they're so good at all this stuff, and you're supposed to be the experienced dude. So you have to kind of meet them and show them, hey, I still know how to do these things. And an example is on the SAR course, we're doing the parachuting. So for 7 weeks, I'm talking to them about how to parachute, and they haven't really seen me parachute. I go up and I do free fall with them and I teach them stuff, but I'm on the ground before them. And on the last kind of day, we're doing confined area jumping. We're jumping into trees, and there's a challenging DZ. So my buddy and I were like, we're going to go and jump this, right? Like, we're going to go lead this in. We're like, yeah, of course we are. Because if we're going to tell these guys to do it, we got to show them that we know how to do it, you know? So, and then there's also like other things you have to accomplish throughout the year. So every year you have to do a certain number of hospital shifts. So it's Wednesday and you might be at the hospital that day and you're a nurse for the day. You have to do 4 nursing shifts a year. So your day-to-day changes like kind of crazy because sometimes you're just regular flying and other people are on, maybe there's people on a DiveX and they're diving. So that's 5 people out of the shop. Well, the people left of the shop are going to be holding the SAR schedule. So they're going to be flying in the aircraft or doing the things at the shop that need to get done. And then, of course, we have trucks and vehicles and ATVs and snowmobiles. These all need to be maintained. They all need to be organized. So there's an endless amount of work to be done. And you kind of just go day by day. It's not structured in the sense like there's no set schedule 4 on 4. None of that exists. It's a spreadsheet, and we pick people based on their qualifications of who's on what shift each day. And it kind of changes quite a bit. This is an element that some people don't like. Some people will love it. Other people put up with it. It's just part of the deal. I used to really like it. And then the more personal responsibility I got, the more challenging that schedule kind of becomes. But there's a cost to everything. So if I want not a chaotic schedule and I want a set schedule, it means that I'm going to be away more because at the school, we're away for chunks of time to teach these courses. Yeah, so day to day, it changes up a lot. There's no 2 weeks that are the same.
Wow, that's incredible. I never even thought half of what you were just talking about.
Yeah, no, that's not the answer I was expecting at all. It's giving me like dirty jobs with Mike Rowe vibes, where it's kind of like, what are we doing today? I'm going to go do a nursing shift, go be a paramedic. Or that's talk about being flexible in terms of what your daily duties are. That's astonishing. Wow.
Yeah.
Hats off for doing all that.
And you're on top of it all, that's all the like sidebar stuff. You have personal qualifications as well that they all have currencies. So each, you have to do 1 night jump a year. You have to do a water jump every year. You have to do 3 jumps a quarter and 60 jumps a semi. So you're always kind of looking and you're like January, February, March. It's the last, it's March. So that's Q1. Oh, I haven't done this yet. So now I have to find a time where I can do this skill. That's why it's so fun as the team member, as a brand new guy, because you have no responsibility. No one's relying on you you're just going and hitting these currencies and staying it. Then you get to a point where you're the team leader, and it is fun to be in charge for sure because you can pick what you're doing. You have all this other responsibility that you're handling too. Then you have, each shop has a boss, the SAR Tech leader, and a deputy. So of course, the higher you move up, even if you're not a deputy or the boss, you're supporting the deputy and you're supporting the boss. So now you're dealing with the things they can't deal with. Hey, Dylan, look what happened here. Like, we need to sort this out. And you're like, okay, I'll do that today. And then now you're trying to fit that into your day. And then of course the fun stuff happens too, where the phone rings and you got to go and do a mission. And that's the easy stuff. That's like yes, I get to be a SAR Tech today.
So with volunteers, and we have our yearly volunteer certifications, I'm going to totally go, hey, this is nothing like a SAR Tech schedule, except they're not getting paid. But that is just insane to hear all that, because like I said, the years I've been in the forces, you guys are, everybody talked about JTF2, but you guys are the secret squirrel stuff that nobody knows all of those details and all of those things that you have to maintain. That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, and so this came up several years ago where they were evaluating pay structures, and they were evaluating a lot of the things that were going on because people were pointing this out. We're like, wait a minute, the special forces, they do a lot of stuff and they do a lot of epic stuff, but they're not out all the time overseas and doing all that stuff. SAR is nonstop operational. It's always operational.
Absolutely.
Now, in your tenure of a decade as a SAR Tech, what changes have you seen?
Yeah, lots of changes. Things change. It's a fluid system. It's like always changing. So some of the main ones have been through safety. So we pay a lot of attention to not just our mistakes. Those are obvious. When you make a mistake, you're like, there's the mistake, and it's obvious. We also track potential mistakes. And that's a big deal. Not just SAR, in Air Force in general, and in Canadian Air Force in general. The Canadian Air Force has arguably one of the best flight safety programs. We certainly have a very low incident rates, and hopefully we keep that up by tracking potential areas. So if something almost happens, or something where you go, thank God that didn't happen over here, we track that stuff to figure out why we were put on that. Thankfully no one got hurt. Why did that happen? And then we come up with preventative measures, and then we implement those preventative measures. So it's quite a robust system. And so what comes with that is changes. Okay, we need to change this rule because this rule doesn't make any sense anymore. This person applied that rule and got hurt, so we're going to change it. So it is a positive thing overall because it's a large organization and it's hard to make things change and happen. But we certainly evaluate risk and what's going on, and then we adapt and make it better. So those are like some of the bigger changes that have happened. And we get new gear. We get new, better gear. We update our protocols. Maybe they get a little dated. The medical community, we follow the medical community, we follow the rope rescue community, we follow the diving community, the Navy, we follow civilian jumping, we follow what's going on in the industry because we're not the experts, we're just professionals. So we look to the experts so that we can be professional, so that we can go. And the best way to describe it is like, if you want to SAR Tech the parachute, they're going to knock that out of the park. If you want a SAR Tech to do a rope rescue, they might not be the best rope rescuers in the world, but what I can do is I can be put in the world's best rope rescue team. I could be just put in the middle of there as some guy, and they won't know. I know the knots they're talking about, and I'll be able to do what they're asking me to do because I'm good at working in that team. So that's what we're after. We're after a level of professionalism where we can go and affect and work with someone else, and hopefully we're skilled enough or experienced enough to go along with what they're doing and not be over our heads and affect what we need to happen. And then sometimes it's just us doing it. So that happens too.
To me, the death of organizations starts with we've always done it this way.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And I know with sometimes with large organizations and my own time with the forces, you sometimes have to fight 200 years of tradition in some cases. However, it sounds like you're all on top of, okay, it's not always done this way. We have to be adaptive, and that's just incredible to hear. So, Dylan, for you, what successes have you seen both personally and professionally?
I would say if I had to pick one thing over the last, however long I've been trying to become a SAR Tech and becoming a SAR Tech, I'd say like my best success is honestly personal growth. Kind of sounds a little cliche, but I have grown and matured so much through this experience. It's kind of, I'm so glad it happened to me. I really feel like maybe I was going to be a loser if I didn't come and because what ended up happening was things kind of came easy to me when I was younger, and things are kind of like, I'm able to learn things and do whatever. Well, when you get into an organization like that, there's so many people around you that are amazing at things. It really humbles you down a little bit, and you kind of start appreciating being around these people. I'm like, man, I've got a lot to learn. And how amazing is that? There are some times where I'm hanging out with someone and I'm like genuinely stoked that I'm the person hanging out with this guy. Like, there's some people in our trade that are just phenomenal human beings, and they've done some epic stuff, and it's like, man, that's just like my buddy. Like, he's just some dude or whatever. And so I would say I've grown a lot as a person, and this is really all I have is SAR because I joined so young, so I've just been stoked by what I've experienced and how fortunate I've been to be a part of this whole thing, because it's kind of amazing, really. And I would say that's like the most I've gotten out of it, and I plan to continue pushing that. It's one of the reasons that I podcast and do some of the recruiting that I possibly can, because going after a goal or going after something big, even if you don't become a SAR Tech, whatever, going after that thing, you're going to learn skills along the way. You're going to learn something about yourself. You're going to learn about other people and grow. And what else are we kind of here for other than growing and trying to improve?
I agree, and you lead right into the next question about SAR Take, the SAR Take, and let's talk about its format and what its topics include.
Yeah, so I started it because there's a lack of information about SAR, and trying to become a SAR Tech and finding information about it seems to be very difficult. And I had this kind of idea of being able to share some of that. Way back when I was in high school, there was a guy who was writing a blog post. He was on SAR course. I was only 17. And I was reading this guy's blog course the whole year. And I kind of experienced the whole thing with him. This guy, incidentally, is going to be my boss next year. So it's kind of funny how it all lays out. But years after that, I become a SAR Tech and I started doing this, and I had written a blog of each of the phases and all the things that were going on. And then I realized how busy being a SAR Tech is, as I just described to you. And so that kind of all fizzled away for a while until I got to a part where I didn't have to study all the time and I didn't have to be doing all that. And I started looking back through the blog and I was like, oh man, and I had seen how many views people were still reading it. It was years and years old. And so I started kind of podcasting. It's been kind of scarce lately. Like I get maybe an episode a month or less. I just do my best, and it's usually an opportunity thing. So I'm hanging out with some guys, and a guy did a fun mission or something cool, and I'm like, oh man, would you mind if we like just chat about that and we'll record it? Yeah, sure. And I'll just record it kind of like that and send it away. I meet so many unique people that it's just like a shame not to try to share some of their story and some of the history of SAR, because missions happen that would blow your mind and you'd never know, because it's not like we do a mission and then we go and tell people about it, and it's usually no one's around to watch it happen. So you just kind of do it and carry on with your life. But it is cool to share some of these stories. I've had a plane crash survivor that was us that rescued him, and he came on and talked about what it was like from his side of the thing. And that was mind blowing to hear his point of view. And then through that, talking about that, I shared some things that he was unaware of. And he didn't know that we are also paramedics. So we came to this plane crash. He didn't know that we had the capability to parachute down to him and give him medical care. He didn't know that. So when I told him that 2 years after his plane crash, he was getting like emotional, saying like, oh, I was like way safer than I even thought I was. Like, you guys had my back, and so it was pretty cool. And the biggest, I'd say, impact I've been able to have is I prompt a lot of people to email me. Like, if you want to know about SAR, I'm your guy. I'll tell you about it, because this doesn't exist. The recruiter doesn't really know much about it. I'm super willing to give some of my time away. I don't have all the answers, but I'll give some of my time. And so I get lots of emails, tons of emails. And sometimes the email leads to a phone call. So I'll call them on the phone and you ask me your questions. Like, what do you want to know? I'll get you sorted out. And maybe it's not even SAR that you want. And I'll get you on a path, because for whatever reason, I had the intuition to pick a goal and start working towards it. And even if I hadn't made that goal, it would have been super successful. And I just want to encourage other people to do that, because I think it's a good thing to do. You don't need to be stuck doing whatever you're doing. You also don't need to like have a perfect vision of what you want to become. And I'm willing to give away some of my time and help people in that avenue, because I've benefited so much from it.
I can only imagine how appreciative so many people are. So where can they find the SAR Take? I know there's the website, but what are you on so people know and they can subscribe?
Yeah, that's an area that I lack in. I'm not a social media guy, and so I don't have any of the socials, and I don't plan on having any of them. So I just kind of accept that as if I had some business manager come to me and tell me how to run it, he'd be like, you should have that. And I'm like, I'm just not going to do it. So I do have the SARtake.com, and then anywhere podcasts are available, the podcast is there. I also have a fitness program called Everyday Operator, and it's for everyday operators, for physically active people. So police, fire, paramedics, SAR, military, lots of people have active jobs, and I developed a training program through lots of experience and reading and that sort of thing to kind of complement active. You still want to work out, but you have a really physically active job. It's kind of a program like that. So that's called Everyday Operator. It's through the Playbook app, but all that stuff's found on my website. And then email thesartake@gmail.com, and I respond to 100% of the emails that come through there.
what's the future for the SAR Take look like? And maybe if you have any friendly words of advice for, say, another Canadian-based SAR podcast that's less than deep, what would you say to them to make sure they don't get canceled after season 1?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to kind of continue doing what I can when I meet up with people, and I'll just share that episode or whatever. I don't ever promise any of my listeners a set schedule, which would be my advice to someone who wants a successful podcast, would be to just stay consistent with it. So I'm kind of, yeah, I mean, I do what I can, but if you want it to grow and stuff, you have to be consistent. I'm very open about it with my listeners, and people come and I've talked to people. They're like, yeah, I just checked to see if you have a new episode or whatever. And so people know to email me, and they know to go to my website if they actually want some help. And that I don't delay on. I do phone calls for people for free. I respond to emails with, some people have even come with me with plans. They're like, here's my next 5-year plan. And I just kind of read through it, and I kind of just go back and forth with some questions with them and just try to help them out. So yeah, that's kind of what I plan on continue doing, is just keep providing that resource avenue where people can reach out. And I don't give away special secrets, or there's no conflict of interest here. I'll just help you as a human. I'll give you advice that I would give my best friend, and that's really all I can do.
The consistency sounds like an important thing. I know Patrick and I first started doing this, said, 2 episodes a month. That's starting to become quite the task.
Totally.
We used to do them a week in advance and 2 episodes at once, and then he'd have plenty of time editing, and now we're getting down kind of the night before thing. And I don't know if that's a good thing, where it looks like we're getting closer and closer to a live episode, or it's just like, we just won't edit it. We'll just go.
Yeah.
But probably not correct. So we'll turn that around. Thanks for your advice.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, like, that's just totally normal. I was doing two episodes a month for a long time, and then I missed one, and then shoot, and then, so, it's normal. It's kind of like that. What I do notice, though, is even when I go months without, because I was so consistent in the beginning and I got 70 or 80 episodes, even now where I just post one in a month, I'll still get tons of views from previous episodes. And I'm not a Joe Rogan, nor do I think that I should be the only podcast you listen to, right? So if I put out an episode every day, it would be less successful. I feel like if I put out a good episode and I just try to put it out, people are listening to other better podcasts that are well produced and I'm okay with that. It's like, there's way better stuff. But then you want your little SAR fix, you come to your podcast, you come to my podcast. There's your SAR fix. Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. Well, Dylan, this leads us into our last question, my favorite question, and that is, what keeps you in search and rescue and doing your podcast?
Well, in SAR, it's kind of a lifestyle. And so I'm contractually obligated to do it, in the military. But even if I wasn't, I'd be happy to be here. Yeah, I would be the constantly learning, for sure. Constantly learning. That's like I love learning, and if I basically can take no effort into learning. If I just go to work and look around, I'll probably learn something. It's really that profound, and I would say that really draws it. Now that I'm instructing, there's a whole nother area of things I need now. Not only do I need to know this stuff, I need to know the best way to deliver the material and the best way to teach it, and how to get rapport. SAR Techs have a very wide variety of personalities, but we're pretty cookie cutter in a lot of ways. And so working with SAR Techs is quite an adventure. So I always look at these as opportunities, especially when I get asked to teach the main course. Hey, you're going to teach the main course. It's not like, I don't take that lightly. I take it as an opportunity. Okay, this is my opportunity to practice not sweating when I'm standing in front of them talking, or not, there's all these little things, how to teach properly, how not to say I'm gonna so many times, and how to engage a group. I've had the course for days before, and you have to keep everyone engaged for an entire day at a time, and that sort of thing. So it's been pretty fun on that front to keep doing it. And then ultimately, when you get to save a life, like, there's just nothing like it. So I've been very fortunate in that, being able to do that too. So I know that when I go back flying, that those missions are going to be there, and I can do it again.
Dylan, I have to say, I know we all kind of cringe when people thank us for our service, but I truly want to say thank you for everything that you and your teams do. People may not know all the behind the scenes. Hopefully we can get the word out with our small audience, but we truly appreciate everything it is that you and your teams do to keep Canadians safe and everybody safe.
Absolutely. You guys as well. I mean, it's not taken lightly that there's these sometimes missions don't happen with the other agencies at all, because they provide a very vital clue or a vital lead to follow or an area to go search. We have to, when you hear, they have a ground search team, the RCMP is coming all the way. You kind of step back. You're like, okay, sweet. If anything's terribly, terribly wrong, it's going to be very obvious, and we're going to go do something. When it's just you head out and you have no idea. You might be looking nowhere near the person. So it takes a village to do this kind of thing.
Well, thank you so much, Dylan, for sharing your insight, a little bit of a glimpse into your world that even myself as a civilian and Patrick as a veteran, very, really eye-opening to all the work that goes on behind the scenes and what it takes to be a SAR Tech and to keep up that qualification. It's truly amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure the listeners appreciate it as well.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. I appreciate the medium to share and talk. It's great.
Before we go, I want to highlight these are the people in your neighborhood, a section where we mention a volunteer from across Canada. I'd like to highlight 2 volunteers, Tricia and Jim Bloomfield from Georgian Bay SAR, a father and daughter team who are part of the Fort Hope humanitarian workforce. Thank you, Tricia and Jim, for all that you do.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, GBVSAR. I love Georgian Bay. They're great, and they're super fun to work with. I've been on training endeavors with them. They're always great. They're like, hey, here's a patch, here's a sticker, here's all this swag. I love Georgian Bay. Thanks for being a part of OSAR there, Georgian Bay. And thank you, Tricia. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for listening to SARCan, Canada's Volunteer Search and Rescue podcast, brought to you by Axiom Mutual Insurance, keeping promises close to home. SARCan is pre-recorded and produced by the Huron and Area Search and Rescue and is edited by Bad Puppy Productions. SARCan is made possible by Hay Communications.
SARCan is driven by your suggestions and comments, so please, if you have an idea for a topic, want to highlight your SAR unit, or give a shout out to a member of your team, contact us at sarcan@hazar.ca. SARCan, for Volunteer SAR, about Volunteer SAR, by Volunteer SAR. On behalf of Spencer and I, thank you for listening, and thank you to all the SAR volunteers out there and everything you do for your communities. Please be safe. And I think it's fitting, Spencer, that having lost George Wendt, who was Norm in Cheers, we give our ending line in the last episode of the entire series of Cheers. Norm has a conversation with Sam and says that Sam will always come back to his true love, indicating that it's cheers. Norm leaves, and Sam says the final line, sorry, we're closed.